So today marks the start of a new project here on the farm, and it has to do with my cattle. Hey Jimi Hendrix, how's it going, buddy? But it doesn't have to do with my cattle on pasture. It has to do with how I'm gonna house my cattle in the winter.
And winter is coming.
Don't be such a cliche.
You know, my setup last year, which was my first year of ever having cattle in the winter, was a bit dodgy. Oh boy, do I have a situation to explain to all of you. Oh, he's trying to get himself back in. Aw. She doesn't want to be your friend, man. I don't know what to tell you. Mom is not happy. But in today's video, we're gonna build an honest-to-goodness cattle yard. I think you guys are gonna love it. Hey, Gus, come on, Gus, let's go. Hey, Gus, fresh grass, let's go. So my cattle spend all of their summer months out on pasture. They don't go inside at night, they sleep out on pasture. But during the winter months, when the snow's too deep for them to be outside, I will bring them into a winter area. The winter area has waterers that are freezing proof, so they can always have access to fresh water. I also let them go inside my barn if they want shelter, even though a lot of times they don't even care to take that shelter. And rather than munching on the fresh grass that we have on our pastures, I will feed them hay. Hey, hey, hey! Now, as I mentioned earlier, my initial cattle yard last year was a little bit of a joke. It was just basically some T-posts and some woven wire fence. One time I had an adult cow escape. A couple of other times I had several calves escape. It wasn't the end of the world, but it also wasn't the best situation. Also, during the winter months, I had 4 calves born on my farm. And when it was time for those calves to be born, I had no ability to pen up the mother or separate her. If there had been a problem, it would have been very difficult for me or a vet to work on the mother. And so while I got lucky last year, it is pretty apparent that my lack of experience led to inadequate accommodations for last winter. Which is why this year we're changing things up. I'm gonna be building a brand new cattle yard. It's gonna have enough space to house all my cattle for the winter of 2023, as well as space for a cattle handling yard. I've been stockpiling materials and I am ready to build. And by the end of this video, you will see what the entire cattle yard looks like, and I'll show you all the steps and process I've gone through to build this yard as a simple setup. And probably before I get into the building part though, I should be giving you just a little bit of a background on the theory behind what I want to build.
Yes, we like to sing about the beauty and the romance of the Old West. But there's a West you might not know about.
So back in the day when animal handling facilities kind of looked like this, there is a woman who completely revolutionized the field of animal handling and animal husbandry, and that's Temple Grandin. Dr. Grandin is a prominent and widely cited proponent of humane treatment of livestock for slaughter, and she's introduced a number of innovations over the years. And back when I was dreaming of starting a farm of my own, her books were some of the most influential things that I ever read. And so as I've been designing and building my animal handling facility, I wanted to take some of the principles that she offered up and implement them in this facility. It's not going to be perfect, and it's definitely not going to have all the things that she recommends, but as I started to make little designs with Lincoln logs of how I wanted to structure this, her teachings were very influential.
There's been a lot of research that shows good stockmanship pays.
And so the structure of my design for the animal handling facility here on our farm is going to be, it wraps around our barn. This is going to allow us to have 2 areas that the cattle can go inside the barn, and I can actually take one of those 2 areas and segment it off and use it as a facility if I have a mama and a calf or a mama in labor. And that way I can keep her away from the other cows and I can do the things that I need to do for good handling. This is something I also saw very clearly up front when I was looking at the Shatney's farm and how they're handling our young bull calf. The other important feature is going to be having an area where I can drive the cattle in, I can sort them, and I can put them in a squeeze chute so that they can get veterinary care. Or if I wanted to do artificial insemination on my cows, I need to have a space to do that as well. And so those are the big priorities. To build the facility, one of the things I'm going to be using is I bought these corral panels.
They're 5 feet tall, they're sturdy, they interlock within each other, and so they're relatively flexible. But they're also light enough that I can move them around myself, and so I don't need to have like a group of people to help me set up a pen. I made sure that if I needed to be able to set up my facility or change things around, it would be easy enough for me to personally do it alone, which is how I'm often working on the farm. So with those basic design principles out there and in place for you guys, now all I need to do is start building.
Find a nicer way to kill it. Find a nicer way to kill it.
So after a little finagling, I think I've got it to exactly where I need it.
You're too late, Sonic. I am now forklift certified.
Because the vision I have here is I'm gonna be driving the cattle down this little curve into this chute. They naturally like to go through curves because a lot of times if they're being pushed somewhere, they're gonna wanna try to turn around. So by having them move on a curve, it'll be easier and less stressful for them. But now I need to build the inside of this curve so that they can follow it.
Great job.
Hey, cows, come on, cows, fresh grass, let's go. Fresh grass, come on, cows, let's go. Fresh grass. So other than a few niceties and finishing touches, I have successfully completed our cattle yard. I know you guys are probably dying to see it, so let me give you the tour. And here we are. This is the cattle yard. Welcome. So I guess just to give you guys the overview, right? The spot that I'm standing down right here is kind of the first gate that I have. This is the one closest to the house. This is the one that if I was gonna come in here, it would probably be the most likely first one I would use. It's a 12-foot wide gate. Like you saw, I've been fastening all the gates to these steel posts that are driven a couple feet into the ground. You can see we've got the corral panels that are going up. And this makes for a nice tall barrier. I don't have to worry about the cattle trying to get through. It's also super secure. So I'm really not worried about them pushing it out. I do have extra steel poles that I'll probably reinforce it, but I want to give it a test run first. And this is my first time ever doing something like this. And so I want to just double check to ensure that everything is laid out the way I want it to. And then once I've confirmed that, I'll lock some things down. I'm also gonna put a gate up over here because this will be one of our underbarn areas. And yes, I still have to clean some of this stuff out. Been just using it for storage. I'll probably take some of that mulch hay that I have right outside here and roll it down inside here once I clean it out. I'll also probably come through with like a farrier magnet so I can make sure I get up any little pieces of metal or nails that might be in here as well. And if I need to, I can subdivide this into 2 or 3 pens so that if I wanted to house a mama and her calf or house a couple pregnant cows, I can do that and keep them separate from the herd inside here. And I'm also gonna be gating this part off as well. They do have plenty of space here. This is gonna be about 1/3 of an acre that they have access to, which is much bigger than they had last year. I have this back gate here as well. So this gate really is meant for if I wanna come in and do clean out with my tractor. Also, I can connect it directly to that gate right there. Or if I'm bringing the cattle from up the hill, I can bring them right down in here. Eventually, I'm gonna put my feeder right here. This will be the primary place that I feed them. I'll also scatter bales in other places. One of the things I learned last year is the cattle tend to get a little territorial with the bales of hay. And so usually having at least 2 active bales at once that are separated from each other prevents any sort of fighting or shoving as they battle for the best bites. Now coming down through here, this is maybe the most important part of the cattle yard. So if I need to do work with the cattle, I just need to drive them down into this point over here. And once I've driven them down into here, I can do 2 things. I can either catch them in this pen, because this gate closes if I need it to close, or I can have them go all the way through and into the squeeze.
Now, I really can't overemphasize how excited I am about how this alleyway turned out. It really is a nice smooth curve. I might try to extend it a little bit further, but overall I'm super happy with how I went from a design concept to something actually executed in real life.
And now this squeeze is what I can use to lock them in. I can operate the head gate if I need to, but if I want to lock them in place, I can just lock them in place. Now this is where if we're doing veterinary work on them, or if we were going to be doing artificial insemination, we'd use this squeeze. You know, a squeeze like this actually follows one of the principles that someone like Temple Grandin has really put out there. You know, where she's actually written about how cattle really like to be hunched together and bunched together. And so the pressure that comes from having a squeeze like this, where the cattle come into it, and then they get the pressure put on them. If it's just the right level of pressure, that's actually something that's gonna relax them. Similarly, when I've talked about wanting to have a curve to drive the cattle through, to either bring them into a place like this, or bring them into the squeeze, or even curve them out again to get them into a trailer. All of those things follow some of the natural tendencies of the cattle. I also have one more gate in the back here, so if I want to load them out, like when I have to take Kurt Cobain to the butcher later this fall, I can just bring a truck right up to the back of here and roll right up and send him right out through here. See, what I'm really hoping for here is the design that I have gives me lots of optionality for how I want to handle and manage them. Now, I feel like I might have misled you guys just a little bit in the beginning of this video, because I don't feel like I'm still 100% done with this thing. But what I'm realizing is I do want to get my cattle in here sooner rather than later and play around and test some things out, like practice driving them through here. Because I'm not sure if I need to do certain things, like do I need to put another panel in here to help funnel them in? Or do I need to use panels over there for when I want to use the nursery area? And so rather than get myself fully locked in place before trying it out, I've got it into a place right now where it's seaworthy and my animals are not getting out of here. And then from there, I can kind of test it and refine it. I'm also pretty certain that enough people are going to see this video and have feedback and comments. Quite frankly, I want to hear them. If there's things you don't think I'm thinking about or questions that you have, you should leave them down below. And 100% I'm going to be making a follow-up video to really kind of respond to some of the thoughts that you guys have. I see a whole lot of value in the wisdom of crowds sometimes. It doesn't mean I'm going to take every piece of advice, and I need to filter it a little bit about what makes sense and what doesn't. But having a lot of different eyeballs on a project like this will help me think through more of the angles. Now, another feature that I have here with this barn is actually something that I used last year. Now, I've actually come through here, and oh my gosh, look at all these spider webs. I don't even know if you guys can see them, but there are like spider webs everywhere because I have not been coming in here on the regular. So I've come through here and cleaned this whole area out. I've thrown down wood chips, I've thrown down sawdust to help be nice absorbent medium. In the winter time, the cattle will still have access to this area as well. I also have a heated water trough set up over there. That's going to be important during our cold months. But I will say that the cattle generally have not been huge fans of using the barn. And they're going to still spend probably most of their time outside the barn, which I think is fine. And that's kind of why I've tried to add a lot of extra ground space here so that they don't feel too crowded over the winter months. So yes, this has been my process of building the cattle yard. I hope you guys have enjoyed it. If you have tips or suggestions on other things I could try or do, or I haven't thought about, I'm all ears and I'd really like to hear it. And in just a few short weeks, I'm gonna have my vet out here to do sort of a whole round of medical care for the cattle, the whole herd. And when that happens, you guys will see this thing in action really for the first time.